Well, time now for the morning stir in Taco Bell like you have never seen it before. This morning, pulling back the curtain on what really happens behind the scenes, with warnings straight from former employees who know the secrets too well. Ever wonder why some Taco Bell meats seem a little too good to be true? Or why certain menu items hit differently at 2 in the morning? Turns out if Taco Bell workers refuse to eat specific meats, there might be a reason, and it is not just personal taste. Some meats are more science experiment than food, others sit around long enough to grow their own personalities, and a few just might have you questioning every late-night taco run you have ever made. So before you place that next order, let us talk about the meat you should absolutely avoid, starting with something that looks innocent but hides a dark truth: the seasoned beef. Ever wonder why it has that oddly smooth texture and perfect color? It is not just cooking skill. It is a carefully engineered blend of beef, fillers, and mystery that might leave you wishing you had just gone home instead. Ever wonder why Taco Bell's seasoned beef tastes the same no matter where or when you order it? That consistent flavor comes at a cost, and we are not just talking about your wallet. Former employees have revealed that the seasoned beef is not exactly what it seems. Taco Bell has faced lawsuits and scrutiny over its beef content, and for good reason. While they advertise it as seasoned ground beef, only about 88% of it is actual beef. The rest? A mix of oats, soy, wheat, and anti-caking agents to stretch the meat further and keep it from clumping together. It is like buying a ticket to a steakhouse and ending up at a cereal bar. The texture you notice, that strangely soft, almost too smooth feel, is not natural. It is the result of a process designed to make the beef go farther while maintaining a uniform look and taste. Taco Bell calls it seasoned beef, but behind the scenes it is treated with more than just spices. A former kitchen manager described the meat as arriving in large plastic bags, already cooked, frozen solid, and resembling brown bricks. These meat blocks are thawed in boiling water, then squeezed out into pans where the seasoning is added. The meat gets reheated and stirred until it reaches the right consistency, a consistency more like thick soup, before it sets into something resembling ground beef. One of the most disturbing parts? The filler. Modified cornstarch is used to absorb moisture and help bind the meat, but it also makes sure that it can sit under a heat lamp for hours without drying out. This means your taco filling might have been lounging around long enough to learn Spanish. Employees report that seasoned beef is made in large batches, and anything not used immediately is kept hot for up to 5 hours. Some locations stretch that time even longer during busy periods. By the time you bite into your beefy burrito, it could be nearing the end of its shift. And if that does not make you pause, consider this. Taco Bell's seasoned beef has a sodium content that would make your doctor cry. A single taco can contain over 25% of your daily sodium allowance, mostly thanks to the salt-heavy seasoning blend. That blend includes maltodextrin, autolyzed yeast extract, and torula yeast, all ingredients designed to enhance flavor but raise eyebrows. These are not just spices from your grandma's kitchen, unless she used industrial flavor boosters. Ever heard of silicon dioxide? It is used in Taco Bell's seasoned beef as an anti-caking agent, the same stuff found in packets of silica gel labeled "Do Not Eat." While technically safe in small amounts, it is not the kind of thing you expect to find in your dinner. It is there to keep the beef mixture from clumping, but it leaves you wondering, if you need to add a lab ingredient to your food just to make it manageable, what does that say about the food itself? Employees have also shared that the beef is often recycled throughout the day. Leftover meat at the end of a shift is sometimes mixed into fresh batches, especially during rush hours when things get hectic. While company policy says meat should be discarded after a set time, the reality on the ground is different. Workers under pressure to meet demand and avoid waste often take shortcuts. One employee described how beef from the lunch rush could end up in someone's dinner, having been kept hot for hours, stirred, and re-seasoned to hide the age. But seasoned beef is just the start. Let us talk about Taco Bell's steak, the supposed premium option. Advertised as grilled and marinated, the steak is another item employees urge you to think twice about. The steak comes pre-cooked and chopped in plastic bags, swimming in a marinade that gives it a shiny, almost fake appearance. Once opened, the steak is dumped into pans and reheated on a flat-top grill or in the microwave. Former workers say the steak has a short shelf life once opened. but that does not always stop locations from stretching it to the limit. If it looks good and smells fine, it is often used until it is gone, no matter how long that takes. And that rubbery texture you sometimes get? That is not a mistake. The steak contains a high amount of phosphates to retain moisture and prevent drying, but it also gives it that strange, bouncy feel. It is steak in name, but not in experience. In fact, some employees joked that it is more like beef-flavored chewing gum than actual steak. It might be the most expensive meat option on the menu, but it is not the highest quality. Now let us move on to something that seems safe, the shredded chicken. Or rather, let us talk about why you cannot find it anymore. Taco Bell quietly pulled shredded chicken from the menu, but insiders know why. The shredded chicken was one of the most labor-intensive meats to prepare, requiring actual cooking in-store, unlike other meats that arrive pre-cooked. It was simmered in sauce, shredded by hand, and stored in warming trays. But the process was prone to inconsistency. If not handled carefully, the chicken would dry out quickly or turn mushy. Complaints from customers about texture and freshness led to its removal, and many employees were relieved. Why? Because the chicken would often sit too long, absorbing the sauce until it became more stew than filling. It was hard to keep it within quality standards, so instead of improving it, they just scrapped it. Now, what about ground chicken? Taco Bell still offers chicken, but in a new form, grilled chicken strips. These strips are marinated and seasoned, but just like the steak, they come pre-cooked and frozen. Reheated in bulk, they can end up dry or rubbery depending on how carefully they're handled. Employees report that the grilled chicken often sits longer than it should, especially during slow hours. And just like the beef, the chicken is treated with phosphates and sodium to preserve texture and taste, but it also pushes the sodium levels through the roof. The most alarming part? Cross-contamination. In busy kitchens, meats are often stored close together, utensils are reused, and gloves are not always changed between tasks. Former workers tell stories of beef mixing with chicken, steak picking up bits of beans, and sauces getting shared between pans. If you think you are getting a pure order, think again. It is a meat free-for-all during rush hour, and quality control takes a backseat to speed. And then there is the freezer trick. If meat gets close to the end of its shelf life but has not been used, some employees have been told to refreeze it, despite official policies against it. This can lead to texture issues and potential safety risks, but with tight margins and corporate pressure, some managers look the other way. It is not about what is best for the customer, it is about what keeps the line moving. If that was not enough to make you reconsider your next order, let us take a closer look at the item that former Taco Bell employees say you should never, under any circumstance, put in your mouth. The ground beef used in tacos, burritos, and more. This is the heart of the menu, the meat that defines Taco Bell for millions of people, but it is also the one that comes with the most red flags. And it all starts with how the beef gets from the factory to your plate. Unlike fresh ground beef you would buy at a grocery store, Taco Bell's beef goes through a journey of freezing, thawing, cooking, cooling, freezing again, and then finally reheating in the store. It is a cycle that removes any hint of freshness and replaces it with something more industrial than culinary. Employees have described how, once delivered, the beef arrives in vacuum-sealed bags that resemble oversized brown ice blocks. These blocks are then boiled, not for flavor, but to bring them up to temperature quickly. After boiling, the bag is sliced open, and the contents poured into pans where seasoning is stirred in by hand. The result? A thick brown sludge that only starts to resemble beef after sitting under heat lamps long enough for the texture to firm up. And that signature Taco Bell smell? It is not the meat, it is the seasoning blend, heavy on salt, garlic powder, and paprika, designed to mask any inconsistencies in the meat itself. What you might not know is that the seasoning also helps preserve the meat, allowing it to stay on the line for hours without spoiling. The meat is stirred occasionally to keep it from crusting over, but if it sits too long, employees have a trick for that too. A little water, a quick stir, and suddenly the beef looks fresh again. But it is not. It is just rehydrated leftovers from earlier in the day. Some workers claim the beef can be reused for up to 7 hours, far longer than company policy allows. After all, tossing out a batch of beef means wasted money, and in a fast food world driven by profit, every ounce counts. Now let us talk about the nacho cheese beef combinations. Taco Bell is known for piling that seasoned beef onto nachos, into cheesy burritos, and over fries. But mixing meat with cheese is not always a recipe for success. The beef and cheese combo can sit in steam trays for extended periods, sometimes over an hour, slowly thickening and congealing into something that more closely resembles glue than food. Employees have shared how they are instructed to keep stirring these mixtures, adding small amounts of fresh cheese or beef to liven it up, even when most of the batch has already passed its prime. By the time you get your cheesy, beefy delight, it could be a mix of new and old, with the old hidden under a fresh layer of sauce. And about that cheese, while it might look like liquid gold, Taco Bell's nacho cheese is more science than dairy. It comes in large plastic bags, shelf-stable until opened, and is heated in special dispensers that keep it at a constant temperature just above food safety requirements. The cheese contains a cocktail of ingredients designed to keep it smooth, including whey protein, modified food starch, and a blend of preservatives. That silky texture? It is not just cheese, it is engineered to stay pourable no matter how long it has been sitting. Workers know that the longer the cheese stays in the machine, the more it breaks down, turning grainy and developing an off taste. But rather than dumping it, some locations top it off with fresh cheese, blending the old with the new. Now let us slide over to another meat that often raises eyebrows: the ground beef used in specialty items like the Crunchwrap Supreme or the Quesarito. These high-ticket items use the same seasoned beef as everything else, but they come with an extra risk: the assembly process. Former employees have warned that during busy times, quality checks go out the window. Meat is slapped on in haste, portions are rushed, and cross-contamination is common. One employee described how, during a lunch rush, utensils used for beef might accidentally scoop up leftover bits of chicken or steak from nearby pans, and nobody stops to correct it. The goal is speed, not perfection, and your customized order might include a little more than you bargained for. The grill used for toasting crunch wraps and quesadillas adds another layer of concern. The same surface is used for multiple items without proper cleaning between uses, meaning that beef juices, cheese residue, and grease from earlier orders can blend into your food. It is not uncommon for bits of old meat to get pressed into a new wrap, giving you a taste of yesterday's orders. Workers under pressure rarely have time to wipe down the grill between orders, and the flavor of your meal might be a mix of everything that came before. And then there is the issue of portion control. While Taco Bell has strict guidelines for how much meat goes into each item, former employees admit that those rules are often bent, especially when trying to stretch a batch of beef to avoid running out. Smaller scoops, extra fillers like rice or beans, and more sauce are used to make up the difference. The result? An inconsistent experience where one burrito might be meat-heavy, while another is mostly filler with a thin layer of beef barely making an appearance. Let us not forget about the ground beef used in the Doritos Locos Tacos. The brightly colored shells might grab your attention, but the meat inside is the same as every other taco. The problem? The shell's strong flavor can hide the taste of old or overcooked beef. Employees say that if a batch of meat is getting close to being thrown out, it is often used in Doritos tacos because the shell's seasoning masks the difference. The crunch and bold flavor make it harder for customers to tell if the meat is fresh or not. It is a clever trick, but not one that benefits the person eating it. And if you think ordering vegetarian saves you from these issues, think again. The same surfaces used for beef are often used for beans, potatoes, and other non-meat fillings. During busy shifts, there is little time to swap gloves, clean utensils, or separate ingredients properly. Even the beans, which are supposed to be a safe bet, come as a dehydrated powder that is reconstituted with hot water. The mixture can sit in steam trays for hours, thickening and drying out, only to be stirred and served like nothing is wrong. There is a pattern here: ingredients sitting too long, shortcuts taken, and freshness sacrificed for speed. The meats at Taco Bell, especially the seasoned beef, are engineered for shelf life, not quality. And the people who worked behind the scenes know better than anyone what really goes into that late-night craving you cannot quite explain. Now that we have peeled back the layers on Taco Bell's seasoned beef, steak, and grilled chicken, it is time to talk about the final meat on the menu that you should think twice about before ordering: the ground turkey used in select regional items and test market offerings. While not available everywhere, when it does appear, it comes with its own set of warnings. Taco Bell introduced ground turkey in an effort to offer a leaner, supposedly healthier alternative to beef. But former employees reveal that what you get in those turkey tacos or wraps is not quite as clean as you might hope. The ground turkey, like other meats, arrives frozen, pre-cooked, and heavily processed. The first surprise? It is not 100% turkey. The mixture includes water, soy protein concentrate, and modified food starch, all designed to bulk up the product and maintain its shape during reheating. The texture of the turkey is another giveaway. It is soft, almost mushy, with none of the fibrous feel of freshly ground meat. Employees described it as a meat paste more than anything else, spooned into pans and stirred over low heat until it reaches the desired temperature. The seasoning is mild compared to the beef, but it still contains a heavy dose of salt and preservatives, including potassium lactate and sodium phosphates. These chemicals help the turkey stay moist, but they also give it a metallic aftertaste that even sauces cannot fully hide. One former worker called it the ghost of meat, there in form but hollow in flavor. Turkey may sound like the healthier choice, but lab tests show it can contain just as much sodium and preservatives as the seasoned beef. And because it is not a big seller, it often sits even longer in holding trays before being used. Locations that carry it only prepare small batches, but that also means the turkey might have been sitting since the start of the shift, slowly breaking down in texture and taste. By the time it reaches your taco shell, it is a far cry from the lean, healthy meat you thought you ordered. Then there is the issue of reheating. Just like other meats, the turkey is often reheated multiple times if it does not get used quickly. Workers are trained to add small amounts of water and stir frequently, but repeated reheating changes the structure of the meat, turning it into a grainy, oily mixture. This is not just unappetizing, it can also lead to digestive discomfort, something many customers have reported after eating what they thought was a lighter meal. Moving beyond the meat itself, we need to talk about how the entire kitchen environment affects every item you order. Former employees consistently warn that during rush hours, the focus shifts from quality to speed. Orders are pushed out as fast as possible and mistakes happen often. Meat gets overcooked or underheated, pans are not swapped out when they should be, and gloves go unchanged between tasks. One worker admitted that during the busiest times, it was not uncommon to serve meat that had been sitting longer than policy allows, just to keep up with demand. Temperature control is another big concern. While corporate guidelines insist on strict temperature checks for all meats, internal audits have shown that many locations struggle to keep meat at the required 140 degrees Fahrenheit. Holding trays cool down over time, and unless someone remembers to crank the heat or replace the pans, the meat can fall into the danger zone where bacteria thrive. Employees have shared stories of managers instructing them to stir the meat more often instead of replacing it, hoping the movement would mask the fact that the temperature had dropped. And what happens when meat starts to look questionable? There are tricks for that too. Adding extra sauce, cheese, or sour cream can cover up texture issues. A taco with meat that is starting to dry out might get a little more lettuce and tomato to distract from the problem. In burritos, old meat can be buried under rice and beans, with the customer none the wiser. These shortcuts are not company policy, but they happen in real kitchens where time is short and customers are impatient. Now let us address one more practice that has been reported across many locations, the end-of-day shuffle. When closing time nears and meat is still left in the pans, employees are sometimes told to cool it down quickly, store it overnight, and reheat it for the next day. Officially, this should never happen. Meats are supposed to be discarded at the end of each day. But in reality, some managers see it as a way to save money and reduce waste. This means your morning taco might be filled with meat from the night before, or even older. Even more concerning, some workers have admitted that they are not always trained properly on food safety. New hires are thrown into the kitchen with minimal instruction, and food handling becomes a guessing game. Without consistent oversight, mistakes happen. Cross-contamination between raw and cooked items, improper hand washing, and mislabeling of meat expiration times are all too common. The turnover rate at fast food chains is high, and that means the people preparing your food might not be fully aware of what they are doing, or might be cutting corners to get through their shift. What does this all add up to? a fast food experience that is more about illusion than reality. The ads show sizzling meat, fresh ingredients, and smiling faces. But behind the scenes, the truth is messier. Meats that are not fully meat, cooked in ways that prioritize speed over quality, served in environments where freshness is a goal, not a guarantee. Former employees agree. If there is one thing you should never order, it is anything loaded with seasoned beef. Not because it tastes bad, but because of what it hides. The beef might be seasoned, but it is also stretched, preserved, reheated, and often recycled. It is food engineered to last, not to nourish. And while the other meats have their own issues, it is the seasoned beef that defines Taco Bell's menu and its biggest secret. What you order is not always what you think. The meat might look right, smell right, and even taste good at first, but the story behind it is something you would rather not know. So next time you find yourself craving that late-night taco fix, remember this. The meat on your plate has traveled a long road, and not all of it was clean. It has been frozen, thawed, cooked, cooled, held, and reheated. It has been seasoned not just with spices, but with shortcuts, preservatives, and a dash of uncertainty. And the people who have worked there? Most of them would not eat it themselves. When the ones making your food warn you to stay away, maybe it is time to listen.